With Netflix dropping their new documentary this week titled Night Stalker, which tells the story of serial killer Richard Ramirez, I thought it would be a great time to talk about how acdc got tied in with Ramirez's shocking murders. Stay tuned for the full story. "1985 saw acdc release their fourth album with singer Brian Johnson, titled Fly on the Wall. Johnson replaced frontman Bon Scott, who died under mysterious circumstances in 1980. I have a whole video on his mysterious death down in the description box below. The band's previous record, 1983's Flick of the Switch, marked a commercial decline for the band as it failed to match the success of their two previous albums, including 1980's Back in Black and 1981's For Those About to Rock. Fly on the Wall represented a further commercial decline for the group, with the album only peaking at number 32 in America, considering their three previous records charted in the top 15. Not helping things was that the band was about to tour the album, and before they hit the road, they soon became synonymous with the Richard Ramirez murders. It wouldn't be the first bad press acdc received as a group, as they'd previously butted heads with religious groups and so-called family values types. The band's critics had long asserted that acdc were devil worshippers with album titles like Highway to Hell and songs like Hell's Bells, and some of the band's critics would even claim that acdc stood for Antichrist Devil's Child or Devil's Children. Dubbed the Night Stalker by the media, serial killer Richard Ramirez terrorized the greater Los Angeles and San Francisco area for 2 summers from 1984 to 1985. No one seemed immune from his crimes, as he targeted the young, the old, and men and women in the privacy of their own homes late at night. A Ramirez murder on March 17, 1985 got acdc connected to his crimes. At the scene of the crime, Ramirez left behind an acdc hat, and things were only made worse when a childhood friend of his revealed he was a fan of the band from a young age. The police decided to release the photo of the hat from the crime scene, hoping someone would recognize the owner of it. On August 31st, 1985, 3 days before acdc's tour for Fly on the Wall was set to begin, a group of Hispanic Los Angelinos arrested Ramirez. It was reported by many in the press that he was arrested wearing an acdc shirt. At the end of his spree, he would take the lives of 16 people. Following his arrest, Ramirez claimed that the acdc song Night Prowler from the group's 1979 album Highway to Hell inspired him to commit his heinous acts. Also hampering acdc and rock music in general at the time was that in September of 1985, the censorship group the Parents Music Resource Center, which was led by the wives of prominent Washington politicians, initiated hearings in the US Senate to look into the impact of rock music on America's youth. The controversy further energized acdc's opponents from the religious right, who sought to ban the group's concerts and record sales. At a local show in Springfield, Illinois, a local pastor referred to them as, I quote, immoral, suggestive, lustful, and lewd. According to the book acdc High Voltage Rock and Roll, the band received death threats in the run-up to their Springfield concert, and while the show wasn't cancelled, the band had to lie on the floor of their bus and rebrand the exterior of their vehicle to read Singers for Christ. According to the book acdc Uncensored on the Record, some hotel chains where the band had previously stayed refused to house them on the tour, and similar boycotts and calls for cancellations threatened other dates. But the band only canceled one show during that entire tour, and that was in Costa Mesa, California. Soon enough, local radio stations around the city were pressured not to play music from the band's new album, and several record stores carried notices warning customers not to buy acdc's new album. And their record, Highway to Hell, was pulled off shelves in these stores. So what was the song Night Prowler about, and what did the band have to say to its critics? Here's an Entertainment Tonight report from 1985, where the band's interviewed about the crime.
We attended an acdc concert at the Forum 2 weeks ago, a sold-out event that, in all honesty, seemed rather tame. In fact, the band's fans seemed somewhat bedeviled by all the fuss.
Well, I'm not into the devil or nothing. I think they're just a good rock and roll band. They groove.
I see no difference between them and any other heavy metal band. They're good rock and rollers.
You know, the sort of people we are, if you were really interested in being devil worship, you would go off and do that. You know, it's an art in itself. And it's about as far away from what we are as anything.
But 3 days later,
The rock group acdc has canceled its concert for tonight at Costa Mesa's Pacific Amphitheater.
Local community groups reportedly pressured the promoter to tame the show down. acdc instead withdrew.
You're being told what you can do and can't do, you know, and that's not what this country's all about. I mean, you get your inspiration from something. In the case of that song, it's been completely taken out of context. The story come from, mainly there was a guy that used to steal underwear off people's laundry lines. And that inspired, well, it wasn't Brian that wrote the lyrics, it was a guy, Bon Scott, since dead. That inspired him to go out and write a song about that.
That's what Night Prowler's about.
That's what Night Prowler is about.
Congress has been... That stands for Antichrist Devil's Child. Does it?
It came from the back of my sister's sewing machine.
Sewing machine?
Yeah. You know, it's on any electrical appliance. It's power. It just means power.
AC/DC guitarist Malcolm Young would tell VH1's Behind the Music his thoughts on the connection to the Ramirez murder, saying, "I thought it was a joke at first. We just thought, this is crazy. I mean, why are we connected anyways," he'd say. There would be, however, rock journalists who came to the band's defense.
That band is about as tongue-through-cheek as you get. It is very hard for me, for example, to swallow the widely printed assertion that their very name is some form of anagram for Antichrist.
So what happened to Ramirez after his arrest? In November of 1989, Ramirez was sentenced to death, but he wouldn't die until 2013 due to cancer while he was waiting on death row for 23 years. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section if you guys are going to watch the Richard Ramirez documentary Night Stalker on Netflix. I know I definitely am. There was one really good documentary we recently watched called The Ripper, which I really recommend you guys watch if you like those kind of documentaries. But that does it for today's video, guys. We'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Take care.